this week is sequencing grab bag. What does that mean? So not last week, but the week before last, we spent a good amount of time going through all the scales over different tonal centers. So we had 7 different scale positions. We had 7 different tracks, all with a different tonal center. And we improvised. We used the scale. We practiced blending positions, transitioning between one position and another position. This week is all focused around the sequences that we learned and getting used to how those work in each position. Even though we learned one sequence per position, we can take those sequences and move them to any one of the positions, and we can mix and match with different tonal centers. So it's going to be a lot of mixing and matching. It's a matching game tonight, but it's going to be a lot of fun to hear things done in a way that you may not have practiced yet. We've been very deliberate about, practice this scale and this sequence over this track. Starting last week and continuing into this week and next week, we've said, okay, now that you've learned and practiced all of these different things, specifically, now let's start grabbing them and being creative with them. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to review each sequence. We're going to review each sequence in the native, where we originally learned it. And then we're going to take that sequence and we're just going to say, I'd like to do it starting on A. I'd like to do it starting on F. And we're just going to practice, we're going to woodshed that sequence over that particular tonal center, over that particular track. Now, because tempos vary, because fingering varies, there's going to be some experimentation here. There's going to be some adaptation that happens. But this is how you take something that you learn in a book or on a video or whatever and start really applying it to your playing. You have to get comfortable with it. And so you take some phrases or licks or whatever, and you put them in situations you haven't experimented with yet and make it work. And you come up with something new and interesting altogether. So let's go ahead and start with week 1 starting on G sequence. I'm going to clean up my sound here real quick. Okay, so if you remember, this one was a descending pattern on the way up and an ascending pattern on the way down. Again. Now, if this is new to you, we're going to be going pretty fast through this. I'm not going to be explaining a bunch of hand positions. You can see the tab. And if you haven't done these sequences, if you haven't at least learned these or been exposed to these, this week, hang out and see what we do with them. But make sure that you go back and you learn systematically like we've done over the last, this is week 9, so over the last 8 weeks. So check out the archives. And if you're not a Jamplay member and you can't view the archives, become a Jamplay member. So here's the sequence again. And we'll start with this G tonal center track, and we're starting on G, but then we'll go all over the place with it. See how it sounds. once we've gotten the sequence down in the context of the tonal center, how can we use it in a way that doesn't just sound like a drill? Even just a little part of it. Change the timing up a little bit. So you see there's an element of improv that happens, but this sequence is doing exactly what it should do. It's influencing my phrasing. It's becoming a bit of a rhythmic hook. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. You know, that two notes. And we're adapting it in and using our ears. We started by just going up and down. What's going to be really interesting, though, is each track, each musical environment, how can we take this same sort of feel from the sequence, apply it over a different tonal center, over a different groove, and make music with it. It's really neat. Then you can start doing stuff like, okay, let's take this sequence and then the sequence we did from week 7 and combine the two rhythmic elements or the two ideas over a single scale or over multiple scales, and you start blending things together. This is where phrasing comes from, right? This is how you get out of playing just a scale. Combining sequences, combining feels, combining motifs. This is it. And we're demonstrating that here tonight. Okay, so let's go over the tonal center of A. So you start, you hone in on a certain part of the sequence and build a hook out of it. And all of a sudden it becomes this really musical thing. Let's go to, any questions or comments? Okay. Let's go to...
There's a comment.
Yeah.
You make it musical sounding. I do not. I don't know if there's anything you would want to respond to that.
Anybody is capable of making it musical sounding. It just takes time of blending these things that I'm talking about. You have the scale, you have the sequence, you have the tools, you have the tracks, you have the tab. It's a matter of slowing down enough and letting your emotions, letting your feelings get through your fingers. So it's not this mechanical... We're not just doing that. How are we feeling about it? Well, let's make it bounce. Even that. If all you did was that over the track and focused on making that musical. As you start simple, I went a little bit not simple there, but as you start simple and you focus on, okay, take one string, one line, and then get in this groove and get into the music and start extrapolating on it. Let's go to, let's do something a little weird. Let's go to week 3, starting on B, same sequence. So where's the music there? It's a little harder, right? That's kind of cool there, those notes. Sorry. There we go. Kind of simple because it's on what the bass is doing. That's kind of cool. Not every single one of them is going to sound great over every one, but that's okay. Let's go into a different sequence. Grab bag. We don't have to go in order, but let's go to week 2 sequence. Yeah. Try this. So natively, this was covered over A. So we have 8, 7, 5, 7, 8. And then we walk up the scale with that sort of triplet feel. And we didn't do it up, but you could. Where is he? You could do something like that too. Maybe we'll adapt it a little bit. Basically just taking the same scale and going down. Although we didn't cover that earlier because that's a lot of notes right there. So here it is again. So let's see, let's review what that might sound like over A. No, that's the wrong sequence. That's kind of cool. So this one is clearly more of a run type thing. It's fun to hear that, you know. And then to end, to sort of have this run with a purpose where you're targeting a note. It's a great drill. You won't get it the first time. I didn't get it the first time. I've been playing this stuff for 10 weeks and well, you know, beyond that. But you sink into a groove, you sink into the music, the environment that you're in, and you make something happen. Always target a note. Let's go to a different track. Let's go to, I think this one might be kind of fun on week 4, starting on C. Same sequence. That's cool. That turned out really nicely. That, you know, just playing straight up that sequence. It's a bit of a tempo, but man, that's a lot of fun. Any questions or comments? Okay. I'm gonna do that a couple more times, I think. While looking at my fingers there. That's harder to do it when you're looking, it's like I'm looking in a mirror. Even do part of it. Let's take it to Aeolian. Ooh, I said a mode. Starting on E, week 6. So you see how that phrase, that rhythm sneaks in everywhere. You know, if you were really writing a solo, you wouldn't do it that much. But it's kind of fun to see how many different ways, how many different ways you can put part of that sequence in, part of that phrase. Okay, let's go to. Are there any other observations, questions, meanderings, moanings, conversation of any kind?
No, they're pretty quiet.
Okay. Let's go to week 5. Well, there's your track. Oh, this is another good one. Another sextuplet sort of thing. So we got. This is a descending sort of sextuplet thing. It's kind of neat because you could, you know. they're different sequences, different note orders, but they show the same rhythmic value. So you could go up the other one and down this one and provide a little bit of variety. Here's let's just do that. Kind of cool. Let's give it a try over D. It's nice because it's not too fast. So that's kind of neat, taking both of those sequences up and down. Now let's go back to some of the other ones that some of the other tracks we've done, and see if we can blend those two sequences together tastefully. This is E. So that would be. sometimes it fits really well, and sometimes you're kind of shoehorning it in, but it's all about experimentation. And I think a lot of the times where it's the most successful is when you're taking pieces of it. You're not trying to do the whole sequence. But those faster sextuplet runs it's easy to want to kind of do the whole thing. So, okay, so we've done fairly decent here. Let me know, what are you guys thinking? Are you guys understanding the concepts of taking these different aspects and experimenting? And do you understand the power of, we've got these, basically you're being handed phrasing. You're being handed, you know, all these beginner guitar players especially will say, I don't know where to go next. You know, I learned the scale and I just sound like I'm playing scales. And this right here is how you go from just sounding like you're playing scales to, and the sextuplet ones weren't as cool of an idea or of a demonstration as the earlier ones where we were even playing a little bit slower. And we're going to transition back to that here in a minute. But this idea that you're taking a little part of something, you're creating something memorable. Yes, you're using a scale. Yes, you're using sequencing. But you're doing so in a way that is melodic. The scale and the sequence becomes a tool to create melody, to create rhythm. So are you guys tracking with what's going on? And while you're answering, I will call up another sequence. Yeah, we're going to go to week 7, which is kind of cool. Because it's 2 notes. It's not even necessarily what we'd consider sequence, but it's every note twice. This technique, and played in this native environment, starting on F sharp. It's not all that interesting, period, but you take little pieces of just this idea of playing every note on a string twice. Simple, simple idea. And you combine it with other things. Even more obvious over something like a week 2 track, starting on A, taking this concept Very simple idea, but catchy, right? So you could see there, I was doing quite a bit of sequence blending. I did the starting on D sequence, I did the starting on G sequence, and I did the starting on F sharp sequence, where we had those moments where I was intentionally playing each note twice. That's such a simple thing. But if you do it and you do it intentionally and you make it be something, then even the most simple thing like playing each note twice can ignite your creativity. And then combining with other sequences, it really does a lot. All right, well, I want to hear from someone, even if it's a hi.
Yeah, we've had a number of guys, people chat, say that yes, this is making sense.
Cool.
So seems like it's landing well.
Cool.
Nobody with any questions or complaints yet.
No complaints, that's good. Well, guys, this is it. This is how you want to practice. And we've been through a ton of sequences. We've been through a ton of tracks. I believe we've gone over all the weeks sound-wise. And I'll stress again, the idea that you can't oversimplify here. Take these sequences, break them up, practice them, play them linearly over these tracks, over all the different tones, tonal centers, and start combining little ideas, just like you saw me doing. I hope the idea behind what I was doing today is that hopefully you're familiar enough with the sequences themselves that you can spot, this is what, that was the sequence from starting on D. Oh, that was a sequence from starting on C. I see how he's using, he used that and then he used the sequence from F sharp. And you're blending those together, you're changing tonal centers, you're changing positions, and you're all over the neck. You can do any one of these sequences, any one of these scales, any one of these ideas all over the neck in any order. You have that sort of freedom. But you won't have that freedom if you haven't spent time with them in a linear fashion like we've done the last 8 weeks. So I encourage you, if you haven't pored over the other stuff and tested the badges and interacted with this course, do it. And then when you land here, you're going to feel a sense of, yeah, I get it. Okay, I'll take this, on this string, I'll play this sequence. For this section here, I'll play this sequence. What does it sound like to play this sequence over this tonal center? What does it sound like to blend this sequence with the other sequence? All these things that I've been demonstrating for the past 45 minutes or so. This is how you want to take this information. This is the apex right here of what we are doing in this course. Next week, we're throwing it all together. if you notice, to this week, I primarily I improvised a little bit around, but we're going to be blowing it all over the neck. Sequences, scales, and we're going to be creating, we're going to be intent on sort of songwriting, on creating motifs. So we're going to get out of this idea that we're all over. There'll be some of that. But we really want to ground ourselves in coming up with things that sound catchy, using the phrasing ideas that we've done tonight. And you've got a preview of that tonight, but we sort of stayed away from the scale patterns themselves as a vehicle, and we focus mainly on the sequences. Looks like there's a question or comment.
Yeah, we had one question come in. Should I try to meander over the scales too?
Absolutely, you should. And yeah, you sort of beat me to it there. That really is what next week is. We're on week 8 we focused on scales. Week 9 we focused on sequencing. Week 10 is scales and sequencing, and how can we make those musical. So you're going to be getting a jump start on next week. This week really is about focusing on the sequencing themselves. But yeah, I mean that's where we're headed.
Okay, and Wayne is asking for an update on the Keggy lessons. I don't know if we have anything for that. But.
If you've checked the live stuff should be up, which was just phenomenal. Chris Smith and I cracked into the edits this week, and it's going well. And once we have all the stuff broken down and have taken out the laughter and we left some laughter in. We take out mistakes and things that aren't, don't need to be there. Then we go to the graphics team, and the graphics team comes up with something cool, and then we kind of spread it around. And so I would imagine mid-July, that stuff will start rolling out. Cool. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. We have 1 week left, week 10. Like I said, we're going to be doing some combining scales and sequences over all the patterns. Anything goes next week. We'll see you there.